welcome to the final episode of the network, Hard Talk with a Matrix of Newsmakers. The headlines. Nearly 60 years on, the European Union is in what many see as its deepest crisis yet. Can it survive the threat of a Brexit and the continuing danger of a Grexit? Can it survive a migrant crisis and terrorism threatening the Schengen open internal borders and deep divisions among EU members on democratic and social values? On top of that, a molasses-slow recovery with still high unemployment has boosted populist movements as voters question the effectiveness of mainstream parties. Have Europeans taken too much of the EU's accomplishments for granted? Or could they be better off with full sovereignty back, their national destinies in their own hands? Wired into this edition here in the European Parliament in Brussels, Birgit Sippel, a German member of the Socialists and Democrats, or S&D, here in the European Parliament, and a coordinator for civil liberties, justice and home affairs for S&D. William Dartmouth, the deputy chairman of the UK Independence Party, or UKIP, and Sophie in 't Veld, Dutch MEP and first vice president of the Alliance for Liberals and Democrats, or ALDE. Welcome to all of you. Question to all of you, starting with Birgit. Is this the perfect storm that could split the EU apart?
Now, first of all, I wouldn't say it's a storm. It's a big challenge, and the second challenge after the financial crisis. And what is important is that we are fighting to find common solutions for the situation, because if we do not find common solutions, I'm quite sure this will have negative effects for all of our citizens in very different areas of politics.
Okay, so you're saying if, so you're not sure this is going to work. William?
Well, it isn't going to work simply because the European Union establishment have sought to impose a federal European superstate on the peoples and nation-states of Europe without popular consent. And two manifestations of that, which I just got to go through very, very quickly, are imposing the euro, and the fact of the matter is that Greece cannot function within the same monetary zone as Germany.
Okay. Sophie, are you also pessimistic or perhaps, shall we say, skeptic of the survival?
I'm optimistic because if I look where we come from, when we decided after two devastating world wars, and again after 45 years of communist dictatorship, to reach out to each other and choose a common destiny, we Europeans were able to do that. So if we were able to do it then, we're able to do it now.
Okay, that's exactly it. I think a lot of people are not old enough to remember these wars.
Well, sorry,
the founders.
Can I just say something?
Okay, go ahead.
We have peace in Europe because of NATO. The European Iron and Steel Committee didn't even begin till 1956. This is a sort of rubbishy argument which we in England have been heard for years, and people are fed up with it. But that's why we'll vote to get out.
But if the EU breaks up, could we see conflicts break out in certain regions where there are ethnic tensions, in Eastern Europe, for instance? Birgit.
First of all, I really believe that even young people do know what it means to live in peace, having in mind that around Europe we have a lot of wars, and young people do realize that they are happy, and we do have in peace in Europe, not because of NATO, but because we have the European Union, because the member states do coordinate, and a united European Union is the only basis to find real solutions for all the big challenges in the world.
Sophie, what about this nightmare scenario? Could conflicts break out in Central and Eastern Europe amid demands by different ethnic groups? Could we see a replay of Ukraine?
This is not about NATO or the EU. It's about the big challenges of the world in the 21st century. Look at the global economy. Look at the internet. Look at the conflicts in Syria, Libya, the Middle East. Look at climate change. Look at the refugees. Look at terrorism. It is an illusion that a divided Europe could give a proper response to those challenges. Together, we are much stronger, safer, and better off.
Well, we can certainly respond to those challenges through the United Nations, through the G8, through the G20, and through a multiple of other international organizations without having a European superstate.
Okay, but what about if the EU is no longer negotiating big free trade agreements? Then what happens? There are no free trade. Some people don't want these free trade agreements.
It's much more difficult to negotiate a free trade agreement for 28 nation states rather than merely one. And that is why, for example, Switzerland has got a free trade agreement with China, Australia has a free trade agreement with China, New Zealand has a free trade agreement with China, Iceland has a free trade agreement with China, and the European Union doesn't.
Birgit, how concerned would you be that if there's a breakup of the EU, that there would be Europe would be divided and conquered by larger forces.
No, I'm completely of another opinion than my neighbor, because we do need European Union. And in the global village, we need to find global answers. And one single member state cannot deal with all the challenges. We do need European answers, and only if we find European answers, then we can ask others to take their responsibility.
Sophie, if we see the end of the EU, that's probably the end of the euro. How much do you fear currency devaluations, competing currency devaluations, as we saw before the euro?
I mean, it's fairly obvious that we are much better off in a strong European Union, able to face the challenges, and that includes a common currency. But my neighbour here, if you want to tell the British people that they are better off with their interests represented in the United Nations, where there are other states like, Russia, for example, I mean, you have every right to tell that. But I think the Brits are better off as a part of the European Union.
There are less than 10% of MEPs come from the UK. Until November of last year, we only had 8.24% of the votes in the Council of Ministers. And since the records have been kept in 1996, I'm sorry to give you, but these are facts. You're trying to tell me it's not true. Since 1996, even under the Blair government, the British government have tried to block proposals 72 times, and they've failed on each and every one of those 72 occasions.
But
the fact of the matter is we are having things imposed upon us, and we don't like it, and that's why we've had enough.
Sophie.
No,
we're not even allowed to change benefits. We can't even change our benefits.
Okay. It's funny, and
without going cap in hand with that.
The fact that you keep shouting also underlines the point I wanted to make.
I've got two people I've got to debate, haven't I?
Is that you seem to think that power is about blocking things. Britain has been incredibly influential in the European Union, not because it tried to block things, but because it had good ideas, because it was able to find allies for their ideas, because they got majorities. That is why Britain has been influential. Doesn't mean that you always get your way. No, this is a democracy. You don't always get your way.
Let's go to Birgit. Birgit,
I would like to underline that European Union is not working on the basis that one or the other member state is determining what should happen or not. It's a question of democracy. We have to cooperate. We have to see what is the situation in our own member states. But then directly we have to see what is the best solution for all the member states so that no one is left behind. We have to improve the situation for all 500 million citizens over Europe. And if Europe should tear apart, I think the consequence will be that there are competitions between all the member states, and competition not on the best things, but to water down all the standards that we have.
Very, very quickly, how can we prevent or speed up the break-up of the EU? Sophie.
Well, I think what is speeding up the breakup is the complete paralysis in the Council, where the heads of government come together. They should finally take decisions and also act when it comes about terrorism, about refugees, about the economy and free trade, about climate change. That is the best way to move Europe forward, be stronger and face the challenges of today.
William.
It ought to go back to what was originally planned and people thought it was, namely in two words only, a common market.
Okay, and Birgit?
The original idea was to create a good living situations for all citizens all over European Union. And I think what we have to do now is to step away from extremist positions, take away all the emotions and sit together and look for real solutions in the real life.
Birgit, thank you very much. I'd like to thank our guests, Birgit Zippel, William Dartmouth, and Sophie In't Veld. I'm Chris Burns, and I'd like to thank our guests over the last 5 years and to thank you for connecting with the network.